The iPhone 6s and 6s Plus are the best iPhones ever. Duh. But all marketing aside, the two phones' new hardware together with new features and software bring a pretty cohesive and powerful experience, for the most part at least. So with all S-series phones, the 6s looks pretty much exactly the same as the 6 that came before it. The only difference visually is the S on the back and the new rose gold color. If you didn't like the way the 6 looked, well, this solves nothing for you. Aside from aesthetics, the 6s is now built with 7000 series aluminum, and what that means is that it's now going to be much stronger. But that also leads to the phone being noticeably heavier, and it's also a bit thicker thanks to the new screen. That screen still has the same size and resolution, 4.7 inches on the 6s and a 5.5 inch 1080p display on the 6s Plus. Although visually they look the same, they do have one trick up their sleeve, 3D touch. And although at first it seems like this could be a gimmick, after using it, I've gotta say, I'm impressed, and it's one of the first innovations in how we use touchscreens that we've seen for a while now. There are three basic functions to 3D touch: peek, pop, and quick actions on the home screen. So peek and pop make it easier and faster to see content. Normally in iOS, if you want to see something you have to open up that app, navigate to it, but with 3D touch it's kinda like a wormhole through iOS, as some have said. You can press on something and it will pop open a preview of what it is, like a photo or an address or a link in a website. And if you want to open it up all the way, you just push it a little harder and it pops open. This just makes it faster to navigate and is really a great power user feature. Also on the lock screen you have shortcuts, so you can 3D touch on an icon and it'll give you a list of shortcuts that you can choose from and you can go right to that part of the app. Right now it only works in mostly native apps, but one place that I find myself using it a lot is Instagram. It's one of the only third-party apps that has 3D touch support right now, and it makes it much faster to navigate, and if you want a feel for how third parties could implement this, Instagram is where it'd start. And while you're in Instagram, you might want to post a photo. The 6s and the 6s Plus have a new 12 megapixel camera built in, with optical image stabilization in the 6s Plus. For a while, the iPhone has had one of, if not the best camera on the market, but the 6's 8 megapixel sensor was definitely showing its age. This year, Apple shipped a new 12 megapixel sensor. There isn't a huge difference in the overall feel of the photos. They're accurate, they have excellent dynamic range, and like before, you get consistency and you know what to expect when you take a picture. But the only difference here is that now there's more megapixels so you can zoom in and the pictures look sharper. And overall, the photos are nice. On the video side of things, we also have 4K. Now, this is something I was hoping for, but didn't really expect for at least one more generation, but I'm glad it's here. If you're someone who shoots a lot of video, you're gonna love this. The iPhone 6s Plus optical image stabilization works extremely well. In fact, it's better than any other phone in video that I've tried. And that optical stabilization along with software stabilization gives you some of the best video on a phone right now. It's like you have a separate stabilizer there, but it's all handheld and it's super sharp with that 4K resolution, and it's one of my favorite parts of the phone. Again though, this is kind of like the photos. The video looks similar to what the 1080p video of the 6 looked like, but now it's just higher resolution. And that really isn't a bad thing. There is one new trick in this camera though, and that is live photos. This gives you a video of 1.5 seconds on each side of the photo you take, but you still get your 12 megapixels still. It's kind of like a GIF, but with sound, and it's almost a video, but not quite. These are fun though, but they can be kind of gimmicky. Mainly because the only place you see these right now is on Apple products, so you can't really share them. But there are a number of times where having this movement really does add something to the moment that you captured. They do take up more space, about twice of a normal photo, but I just leave it on most of the time. A lot of the times, the live photo adds nothing to what I took a picture of, but for those times where it is, it's actually worth having, I think. These live photos also work for selfies, which is pretty fun, and the front-facing camera is also updated. Now it's 5 megapixels and has what Apple calls Retina Flash. Basically, it just lights up the screen very bright thanks to a special chip inside the phone, and it works pretty well. Along with that chip, the inside of the phone has been completely updated. The S in the original S model, the 3GS, stood for speed.
The S simply stands for speed.
Not sure if that's what it still means, but it definitely should be, because this phone is blazing fast. Now, a lot of the times in the marketing mumbo jumbo, they always say that a phone is faster, but this is one of the first times where it's noticeably faster from the generation before it. And that's impressive, because the iPhone 6 really wasn't a slouch, but this one is definitely better. There's a new dual-core Apple A9 processor and M9 Motion coprocessor with 2GB of RAM. And in 2015, that sounds kind of horrible, but this just adds another layer to the specs don't matter argument. This phone is consistently fast, opens everything quickly, allows you to switch between apps very fast, and it's one of, if not the fastest phones you can get today. It's great. Also, Touch ID is super fast as well, and it makes opening the phone a half-second process rather than a 2-second process, and it does save you some time. One part about the internals though is the storage. You get 16GB, 64GB, or 128GB, and I think we can all agree that 16GB just isn't enough for 2015. I think we can all agree that it's time for manufacturers to bump that up a bit, and it's not just Apple, there's a lot of other ones doing it out there, and I think that they should all do it. But as you can tell, overall, this phone is fast. The new hardware, along with iOS 9, gives you the best experience in an iPhone yet. One of the biggest complaints with the iPhone for some users is the walled garden, where you can't have apps that talk to each other and work together. But those walls are beginning to come down. With continuity, 3D touch, Siri, navigation is becoming faster and easier, and with Siri's new predictive features, you can have your favorite apps do things without you thinking about it. Yes, there are still walls, but they are much smaller than before, and the efficiency of iOS is getting better with each release. And it makes the iPhone 6s all that much more powerful. So is it worth upgrading from the iPhone 6? Probably not, but anything older, it would be a go for sure. The iPhone has always been a great phone, and with all the services and hardware finally coming together, if you're in the Apple world, this is a no-brainer, and if you wanted to try something new, this is probably the best time to try it. I've tried hard to find something that's majorly wrong with these, and there just really isn't. Even though it's a silly statement, these really are the best iPhones ever.